So hey guys, today we're going to see how we can scrape Yelp using Python Scrapy. Okay, it's a very simple tutorial. You'll understand quite a lot about how to load up Scrapy, how to run a spider in it, and also how to use CSS selectors to scrape the data we want, and also how to save it into a CSV file. Right. So I'm going to pick out. Um, let's say we want to scrape Yelp in a particular way. So let's just go to Yelp and let's say in San Francisco, I'm going to look at restaurants and I want to pick out. Hmm, interesting. Interesting already that they've actually changed the way they show things. This is going to be a challenge. I didn't even know, for example, that this is going to be. So let's say we are here, right, and we want to scrape these results. So let's just say the top restaurants in San Francisco. Okay, so we're looking at this. We're looking at probably the name and the number of reviews. Maybe we can scrape that and see if we can pull that out of all this mess that's there. Right? So we're going to pull this URL out. We're going to use Scrapy. Scrapy, if you are not installed, please do. It's pretty simple to install. Um, and if once you've installed it, um, here is the starting code for it. You just import it into a Python file. I've already named this file called elp.py, and we're going to create a class which is inherited from the Scrapy spider class by just declaring it like this. So we'll call our class, let's say Yelp Scraper Spider, right? And everything in Scrapy, they use the word spider a lot. They like that. Scrapy dot spider class you inherited from. You gotta name the spider, so I'm gonna call it. Well, that's what I called it here. I'll just call it Yelp Scraper. Right. So one of the things we can define, because we already know the URL is, we're going to copy that URL. That's your start URL, right? So you can define that as start URLs can be a bunch of actually more than one URL in Scrapy. So I'm just going to define one of them here, and you can add more than that. All of these URLs will be scraped automatically by Scrapy, and then the control will pass to a parse function. All right. So let's just define a parse function. That's Scrapy assumes that you would have defined it, and it will pass the response to it. Self dot response as the object, and so you can do whatever you want with the response object now. All right. So let's just say, should we just run this still here? Right? So we can, or we can, let's just find out the CSS for the name. Let's just print the name first. Right? So I'm just going to go here, and Yelp is a little tricky with this. So what I'll do is I inspect this name in the Chrome Inspector tool. So you'll see that it'll have this will be a real challenge over here because they use funny class names here. So I'll pick out the class name And I use a simple CSS selector. You can see little Nepal here, there's a href. So I think I'll do that and just do use the, let me see what is the most meaningful one here. Right, I think this is the most meaningful one. So I'm gonna, so because there's a span which contains the href here, right? So each of these have weird names. If I go up, there's a h4, and at h4 you'll see something which is a little bit more meaningful, which is the heading, mm, that one, right? So I'm just going to copy that. If I double click, it allow you to copy this entire CSS. I'm just going to store that there. This one is the class I'm looking for. I'll ignore the rest and see how I do this. All right. So how do I call that out? It's as simple as we use an extract function, um, because the response object, so we need to store it somewhere. So this is the heading. So I'm going to call it restaurant name equals response dot css, and I'm going to now, if you use jQuery, this is just a CSS selector that you're going to use. You'll use the same notation, right? So you're going to use for any IDs, you're going to use a hash symbol, and if you're calling a class, you're going to use the dot symbol. So the class name will come here like that, right? So in our case, we're going to take this class, funny looking class, and we're going to say dot extract is the function that is inbuilt to be able to um, yeah. So and then while we are at it, why don't we do one more? Let's say, let's see what else we can do. We'll just go back over here and do, okay, we need the number of reviews, which is very useful many times, because it will tell us how good that restaurant is or how popular it is. So again, I want something a little bit more meaningful than lemon span. This describes the color. These are just tricks you pick up just by experience, I feel. Let's see. Okay, I think I did a mistake there by just sort of going after the ads a little bit. Okay, here we go. Review count. This is not so bad actually, because before this actually becomes even more meaningless. So I would take the review count over anything else over here. See, if you look at this part, so there's a lot of junk. I'm just going to take all of this for a second, paste it here. So if you look at all these are different classes that define. So the review count part is what I'm going to keep, and just leave the rest of it which describes its position, not text color or all of that. I'll leave that out. I'm just cutting that and replacing that with this. And I'll call this restaurant reviews. Right. Straight away, I think we're getting into the deep end over here. So again, it's a very simple CSS class. Um, but we need to now create like a dictionary um, to store all these things, to sort of, yeah, bring them together, because the response object now will give, so here's how I'm going to propose to do. There are many ways to do this, but I'm going to use a zip command here in Python, right? For item in zip off. So what happens here is, this is a little tricky. You will have enough number of restaurant names, and you will have hopefully the equal number of restaurant review objects, and they have to be mapped together. Okay, this is always a little tricky. So what you then do is you zip them like this. Use the zip command and add restaurant name. So I'll call it a plural thing here because they all come into that. It's an array of restaurant names. And I'm going to add the restaurant reviews over here, just like so. Okay. And then I'm going to iterate through them together. Right. So we're going to create a dictionary here. So dictionary with map data, right, between these two things. So I'm going to call that dictionary all items, maybe. Yeah, there you go. And I think that it's the flower bracket that I have to do. Yeah. And I'm going to now call it restaurant name. Instead of names, I'm going to call it name. And now we're getting into the items of it. Right? So the item contains the first one will be the name. So I'm going to call it item of 0. Sorry, that should be item of 0 dot text. And then I'm going to call the next one restaurant review. Then get the second part of the array text. I think this should do. All right. So what do we do with with all items? We're going to yield it back to Scrapy. Okay. Yield all items. Here we go. This should produce decent results. So let's just see what happens here. So the way to run this is I'm going to call Scrapy. Oops. Scrapy. Run spider yelp.py. Oops. Not able to find yelp.py. Oh, okay. I think I saved it in the wrong area. So I'm just going to make it directory. Make directory Scrapy. I don't remember where I saved it, so I'm just going to make it Scrapy Yelp directory. cd Scrapy Yelp directory. Sorry about that. And save this into that. I think I've gone somewhere else. Scrapy Yelp. Yep. Yelp.py. There we go. I think if I listed, there it is. So I'm just going to go up again and do Scrapy run spider yelp.py. Invalid syntax. Where was it? It's in parser response. Oh, sorry about that. Did I put it? That should be what it is, not dot. Yeah, you can see a lot of debug information by Scrapy. And Unicode object has no attribute text. Oops, sorry about that. The text thing comes from Beautiful Soup. Always a little, I think it's just direct. Alright, here we go. If you notice, if you do too much of this, Yelp might block you. So I'm always a little nervous when I'm doing this. Okay, here we go. So we got quite a lot of data here. So what's happening here is there's a lot of gibberish, but you can see Fog Harbor House. You can see the reviews. You can see it's sort of getting something. The review count is 5974. So it's getting us the HTML. So one of the ways to do this is to now get the text part of the HTML and remove the HTML. So we can use many ways of doing this, but I'm never sure about my latest Python installation. So URL parse is not something that I will use here. I'll simply use Beautiful Soup because I'm very comfortable with it. So just install Beautiful Soup. If you don't have it, it's very useful anyway. So at the price of one, we're going to learn how to use basic Beautiful Soup functions as well. Beautiful Soup is a library which was designed to um, I think I got that right. Yeah, okay. We'll run it and see what happens. Um, you can always with Beautiful Soup, you can always it's probably the best library to clean up HTML. It's very good with working with rogue HTML. So I'm gonna invoke the text converter in sorry, I think it's just that, and inside Beautiful Soup, and it should clean up technically here. It should clean up a lot of that data. Let me just hope I get lucky over here. Yeah, there you go. If you look at it, you got the Fish Harbor House, and that's it. That's the restaurant number of reviews. Little Biobab restaurant number of reviews is 561. Marifuku Ramen San Francisco 2855. You can go see this Palazoya Fish Fog Harbor House, Fish House. You can see it has 5974 in reality. The same pin here, 5974. And there you go. It's as simple as that. And now we learned a few things. We learned how to get the data. We learned how to use CSS selectors. We learned how to simply create a Python's Scrapy spider and use and inherit the class and quickly run through the data and create a dictionary. And one thing we may need here is we may need to store this data, right? I think one of the ways to do that is to just use the, I think there is a extension where I can use that, and then I say yelp.csv. It should be able to store the data. I might be wrong here. If I can just say output CSV, stored CSV field. There you go, in yelp.csv, right? You may want to double check that. Here we go. I'm going to go to HT docs, and I'm going to go to Scrapy Yelp. Here we go. And if I open that, then it's a beautiful CSV, I feel. There you go. Okay. There's some cleanup to be done because if you see there's a 1 dot, 2 dot, and all that, because that's a part of how they display this. And I think that's pretty simple. Um, you know, you can just split by this and then be able to easily get that. I will not get into that. That will be too simple for you anyway. So there you go. This perfect CSV for you. Right there. So that's it, folks. Couple of the issues here is you might need a rotating proxy if you because Yelp will soon block you, right? In my experience, I've done this a lot, and what you will eventually need is a rotating proxy service. My advice is to pass it through something like that. I'm the founder of Proxies API .com. If you go there, you will get access to million plus proxies using a simple API. So what you need to do is you just change. In fact, I'll just show you. If you go to proxies.api.com to be able to actually scrape this well, instead of directly passing to yelp.com San Francisco blah blah blah, you're going to just pass it to, that's me by the way, you're going to pass it to this URL, this endpoint here with your API key. The API key is free. You can get 1,000 of these API calls, no credit cards, with a free sign up here per month. No questions asked. You'll be able to use it and get access to basically Yelp or many other sites across the world without the hassle of getting blocked by IPs. Right? So I'll let you guys decide on that. But I hope you enjoyed this